Thank goodness for the Drummer World forums. Without them, I'm sure I'd run out of content really soon. It's hard to run out of ideas when people keep feeding you such excellent content. The other day, somebody posted an article to the forums that was like the 11 mistakes that most gigging drummers make. And to be honest, I wasn't blown away. There was some revolutionary stuff in there, like bring a rug and arrive with plenty of time to set up. I mean, really? This is no-brainer stuff. Not exactly groundbreaking here. So I've gigged a lot, especially the last 15 years, but hundreds and hundreds of gigs at all sorts of venues, and I thought I'd share 6 things that I know for sure are mistakes that I've made, and there's going to be some great stories about making them, and maybe telling those stories will help you not make them. This is Al's Drum Hang. The first mistake I want to tell you about is it's a total mistake to try out a new piece of gear on a gig. Try that stuff out at home. Set it up, work with it. There's actually 2 stories, so it must have taken me a couple of tries to get this one right. When I was a kid growing up, there were no music stores anywhere around, and of course I didn't have a car to reach the ones that were within driving distance. So I had what I had, and if I wanted to add stuff on, I had to cobble things together and make it work. So if you imagine making a little weak 1960s vintage cymbal holder hold an 18-inch crash, and I took it to a gig. It was just a school gig, but still, I hit that thing once, and that little brittle, fragile cymbal holder broke apart, and the cymbal went skittering across the stage. Yikes. Fast forward about 15 years, and I am at a gig with my band Smokey the Giant, playing a well-known venue in Santa Cruz, California called The Catalyst. And this was a big gig for us. The Catalyst is a fairly large venue, fairly famous. A lot of big-name acts have played there. This was our big moment. And I thought, well, it's such a big moment, I'm going to reconfigure the rack I was using at the time. For my huge drum set with mounted floor toms. It was the early 2000s. It was just a thing. Just bear with me here. And so we got there, and we'd even composed a brand new piece of instrumental music to start out our set with. And this piece of instrumental music ended with all of us doing a unison band hit, and I was doing that band hit on the mounted floor toms. Boom, 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 over here. Then I clicked us in for the second song. What I didn't know is that I'd actually broken the clamp holding the crossbar of my drum rack on the right-hand side. And so I noticed that all the cymbals and the floor toms and everything were starting to tilt over and roll around towards me until by the first chorus, all those cymbals on the right-hand side were like actually resting against the right-hand side of my body. And I could barely move my right hand at all. And of course, I didn't have roadies, so there was nobody to help me. So when we got done that song, I just got out some duct tape and taped it up, and we went on. But moral of the story is you need to set that stuff up at home. You need to try it out at home. Don't bring something brand new out on the gig. Don't try new stuff with your gear on a gig. And let me tell you, that goes like super double for electronics. Electronics, they go wrong enough without just throwing something new at yourself when you start a gig. So do yourself a favor in that respect. Test it out, try it out, make sure you've got all the bugs out before you take it on the gig. Your experience may vary with number 2, but I like spicy food. I like some really exotic Asian food, but you should probably never eat a challenging meal right before a gig. And I mean within a couple of hours of the gig. I love Indian and Thai and Korean food, and there's been a few times that I have eaten a really spicy or a really hot or a really something dish, and by the time it's almost time to go on, my stomach is in full revolt. Now you've got some choices to make. Do you maybe go on a little bit late, and that might have ramification for the rest of the show, and chance a club bathroom and try and take care of the situation? Do you try and tough it out? And if you try and tough it out, what's that going to mean if you don't make it all the way through the set? How's that going to feel playing like that through the set? Are they going to be able to hear your drums over your gurgling stomach and or the sound of you having a stool on your stool, so to speak? Maybe you need to tell the guitar or bass player to take a solo while you go take that call on the big white courtesy phone. I have no answers for you on this one, just uncomfortable questions. But maybe I should add some Pepto-Bismol tablets and some Tums to my emergency crash kit. Another mistake that a lot of us make is we indulge in recreational substances of some kind or another right before we play. And me personally, I like a beer or two setting up during the first couple of sets, just it's fun. I go partially to gigs to have fun. Now, there's many gigs where I won't drink at all because it really is job-like. But if I'm out at the bar or whatever and people are drinking and I want to have fun and look like I'm having fun, I'll have a beer or two. That's usually about it. There have been times where I've gotten carried away and I'm having so much fun and the beer tastes so good and I'm a little bit thirsty, and the next thing you know, I'm 3 or 4 beers in and I haven't even started playing yet, and oh my gosh, I've done that a couple of times. I've always regretted it. It fortunately has never gotten so bad that any of my bandmates have ever said anything like, wow, dude, you were so wasted you could barely play. Anything like that, and nobody wants to ever be in that situation, do they? I think it's a terrible place to put yourself. It causes your bandmates to have uncomfortable conversations with you later, and your fans can't enjoy it because you're ruining the gig. I have seen bands play where somebody was obviously stoned or wasted or drunk, and it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of tragic. And I also feel kind of cheated because I came to see good music and hear good music. And if I wanted to see a drunk person play, I could just go down the corner and watch a busker. I don't do anything harder than alcohol myself. I don't think I ever will. I'm not telling you what you can and can't do. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do, except you should really moderate yourself. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're ruining it for everybody. Number 4 is really like right up in recent memory because this just happened to me a couple of weeks ago at a gig at a museum fundraiser. It is a mistake not to use the restroom before every set, even if you don't think you have to go. And here's the thing, I did, but I'd been hydrating a lot. I'd had a few beers and stuff during the fundraiser. And so for whatever reason, even though I went to the bathroom in between sets, it wasn't enough. And this was an hour and a half set. So about an hour in, I started riding that water balloon, and it was not fun. The lead singer noted later how the tempo seemed to be picking up in the back half of the set. And I'm like, yes, well, there was a reason for that. But in all seriousness, you need to make sure that you do hit the restroom, take care of yourself before every set, because that's just painful. You won't play as well. You will definitely be distracted. And once again, it's something where you don't want to cheat your audience. You don't want to make your bandmates have to be those people and say these things to you. Remember what your mom used to say? Why didn't you think of that before we left the house? Why didn't you think of that before we started playing music? Do your business before we have to go. Plain and simple, right? It's a no-brainer, but you wouldn't believe how often this happens. The next one's a little bit more about work, the work of being a musician, the work of being a competent musician in a competent band. And really what it is don't blow the starts and stops of your songs, because that's what's going to make you sound like an amateur band. You need to know where the starts are, how every song starts, where the stops are if you have stops in the song, and you have to know how each song ends. And you need to practice that stuff and be conversant with it and make sure everybody understands it. Nothing personally upsets me more than going to a rehearsal, we agree on how the song starts and ends, and then somebody just can't get it or decides to change it up without working it out with anyone else and just expects everybody to know that we're not psychic. Now, everything in the middle of the song, you can totally work out as a drummer. You know how that works. You need to just keep a beat and keep it steady. And as a matter of fact, you could roll up to a gig not having played with any of the musicians before, just with a song list, the tempos, and as long as you know how every song starts, where the stops are, and how they end, you can get through it. You really can. And this is one of those things that separates the pros from the amateurs. And just work on it as a band, as a musician. Sometimes it's actually fun to show up to gigs and just have that amount of knowledge and work through it. But if you know nothing else about the music, if you do nothing else as a band, know where the songs start, where they stop, and how they end. The last one is a little bit of a personal choice that I make, and your mileage may vary yet again, but I think it's a mistake to try and force yourself to play really difficult parts of songs, note for note, if you're having a bad night. I think you should concentrate on serving the music as best you can and getting through the song. And, sometimes we're just not feeling it. Sometimes we're having trouble feeling it. Sometimes the sound mix is not right. Sometimes we have what I call the hands have the dumb. And stickings are just not happening the way you want them to. It happens to all of us from time to time. If you're a really experienced, accomplished musician, it happens fewer times. But yeah, sometimes we just get the dumb. When this happens, I focus on the band. I focus on listening. I focus on playing the most important parts. I focus on keeping the rhythm, and I might make things easier. There's one song we play that's in 12/8, and there's 16th notes on the hi-hat starting right off. And then there's a syncopated rhythm on the rim of the snare. If I am not feeling it, maybe I can get away with quarter notes there. Da, 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 da. And just get us through it, right? So sometimes you can simplify it like that. If there's like this really incredible, intricate part of the song, and you're just like, man, no, leave out a few notes, simplify it, get through it, serve the song. Now, if you are in a Rush or Dream Theater tribute band, I've got nothing for you. Your crowd expects you to play those note for note, and you better play them note for note, and don't take any shortcuts or you will hear all about it. I rarely resort to this for more than one or two songs, and it's usually like an emergency situation, like I just cannot make my limbs respond. Don't be afraid to have kind of like a backup plan to get through a song if suddenly something just goes wrong. And this could be for other reasons too. Maybe you drop a stick, maybe a cymbal stand breaks, or you broke your cymbal stand because it's cheap cobbled together parts. Maybe the sound system just shut off and you're just trying to get through the song as simply as possible. This is an emergency situation, and what you don't want to do in an emergency situation is freak out and stick to complicated parts, because the chances of everybody making a mistake and it train wrecking is even worse. But if you just play it through and get through, take a deep breath, regroup on the other side. Anyway, these are some of the things that I think are common mistakes, common enough mistakes that I wanted to talk about them. And these are some of my ideas for getting through them. or at least dealing with them. But what are your common mistakes that you think people ought to really be thinking about all the time at their gigs? Let me know. Drop it in the comments. What do you think about my crazy stories? Should I have done something different? What's your go-to when your tummy's rumbling right before a gig? Let me know. Anyway, thanks a lot for all your likes, views, and subscribes. I hope you enable notifications and watch for the next video. I've got a couple of really cool, fun videos coming up that I've got planned, and hopefully you'll really enjoy them. In the meantime, this has been Al's Drum Hang, and I appreciate you. Take care.